Michaelburry, best known for being one of the first investors to spot the subprime mortgage crisis, is back in the news. In an interview with Bloomberg, Burry warned of an impending crisis in China, saying the country's debt bubble is worse than ours was. He said that China has lent trillions of dollars to state-owned enterprises that will never be repaid, and that the economy is in a delicate situation. Burry's comments come at a time when China's economy is slowing down and the country is struggling to keep up with its debt. While the Chinese government has been working to promote economic growth, it has also been taking steps to control its debt. In recent years, China has been cracking down on its shadow banking system and working on deleveraging its economy. While Burry's comments may be alarming, it's important to remember that he's not an expert on China. And while his predictions about the subprime mortgage crisis were accurate, it's worth noting that he did not foresee the full extent of the problem. That being said, Burry's comments are a reminder that while the Chinese economy may be slowing down, it is still a significant player on the global stage, and its problems cannot be ignored. The reason behind warning us is that China's subsequent big collapse is coming. Michaelburry, the American hedge fund manager who famously anticipated the subprime mortgage crisis, is now warning that China is headed for a similar collapse as what the US faced in 2008. While it is true that there are some similarities between the American and Chinese economies, there are also some crucial differences. For one thing, the Chinese economy is much larger and more diversified than the American economy was in 2006. Additionally, China has a much lower level of household debt, and its banking system is much healthier. But now, it is still possible that Burry is correct, and China is headed for a significant economic downturn. The country's recent slowdown in growth, coupled with its massive debt levels, could portend trouble ahead. And if China does experience a financial crisis, this will likely impact the global economy significantly. Could this be the next big global financial crisis? Burry is known for his early call on the last financial crisis by shorting subprime mortgages, and he believes China is on a similar path that could lead to an even more significant concern. China is the mother of all credit bubbles, he said. Burry isn't the only one that's worried about China's economy. How did he know? Burry explains that he's been watching China for years and has spotted several red flags that indicate an impending economic downturn. China has been hailed as an economic miracle in recent years, with its rapid growth and booming industries. However, not everything is as rosy as it seems. Michaelburry, a former hedge fund manager who was one of the first to predict the 2008 financial crisis, and he spotted several red flags that indicate an impending economic downturn. Burry explains that one of the main problems is that China's growth has been driven by debt rather than actual economic activity. China has built too much capacity funded by too much debt, creating a situation where its consumption is insufficient to sustain growth, he writes. It's led to a huge problem of overcapacity and excess debt, eventually leading to a slowdown or recession. Burry points to several other factors that he believes are also indicative of an impending economic downturn in China, including the country's shrinking foreign exchange reserves, its soaring house prices, and its declining labor force. He concludes by saying that while he doesn't know when the downturn will happen, he believes it's only a matter of time. What are the red flags? Burry cites China's high levels of debt, its diminishing foreign reserves, and slowing growth as the leading indicators that a collapse is coming. Burry says the Chinese government is trying to mask these problems with smoke and mirrors, but that eventually the truth will be revealed. He predicts that the Chinese stock market will crash and that this will have a ripple effect throughout the global economy. Burry's predictions may be coming true sooner than we thought. In the past few months, we've seen a sharp decline in the value of the Chinese stock market, which has also caused economic turmoil in other countries. Burry was onto something when he warned us about the Chinese economy. He also points to the country's aging population and shrinking workforce as other vital factors contributing to the collapse. It's not just the experts like Michaelburry warning us of impending economic doom in China. Several other indicators point to the same conclusion. Here are some of the critical signs that failure is coming. 1. China's high levels of debt. 2. Its diminishing foreign reserves. 3. Its slowing growth. 4. Its aging population. And 5. Its shrinking workforce. The Chinese government is aware of these problems and is taking steps to avert a crisis, but many believe the measures will ultimately prove unsuccessful. If the Chinese economy collapses, it will have far-reaching consequences for the global economy. Why is this a problem? Burry explains that China's debt is growing at an unstable rate and that its slowing growth means it won't be able to service that debt. Burry argues that this will lead to a financial crisis and that the Chinese government is trying to hide the extent of the problem. Burry's article is based on data from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, which shows that China's debt is growing faster than its economy. He argues that this is not sustainable and that the Chinese government is trying to hide the extent of that problem. Burry points to several factors that he believes are contributing to China's debt problem. First, he argues that the Chinese government has been encouraging state-owned enterprises, SOEs, to take on debt to finance investment. This has led to a buildup of debt in the SOE sector estimated to be around $15 trillion. Second, Burry argues that the Chinese government has been keeping the value of its currency artificially low. It's made Chinese exports more competitive, but it's also made it more difficult for the Chinese government to service its debt. And third, Burry argues that the Chinese government has used its sovereign wealth fund to prop up the stock market. It has been creating a stock market bubble that's starting to burst. Burry warns that China's collapse will have ripple effects through the global economy, causing a recession or depression. The full extent of China's economic problems are still unknown, but they are expected to have far-reaching consequences. One ripple effect is likely to be an increase in the price of imports, as China is a major global producer of many commodities. It could lead to inflationary pressures in other countries. Additionally, China's stock market collapse could lead to a loss of confidence in other financial markets worldwide. It could lead to a global economic downturn. These ripple effects will be especially apparent in countries highly integrated with the Chinese economy, such as Australia. Burry warns us that China's subsequent big collapse is coming and that we need to prepare for it. Burry argues that the Chinese government keeps the country's economy afloat by propping up failing industries and manipulating its currency. It's not sustainable, and the whole system will come crashing down. Burry's warning should be taken seriously. China's economy is already in trouble, and a collapse would have devastating consequences for the rest of the world. We need to diversify our investment portfolios and prepare for a potential downturn. Burry's warning is just the latest in a long line of warnings about China's economy. Many analysts have argued that the country is in a bubble and that a crash is inevitable. Indeed, there are many signs that China's economy is in trouble. GDP growth has slowed sharply, and the country faces several structural problems. However, it's important to remember that China is a vast and complex country. It's not easy to predict its future. China may muddle through its current difficulties and avoid a significant crash, but it's also possible that Burry is correct, and we're on the brink of a significant global economic crisis.